Welcome back, advocates. It's day 3, and hopefully you're all feeling more and more ready to go to Capitol Hill, share your story, and make the ask. Today we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of your visits, what the platform looks like, what a virtual meeting looks and feels like, and you'll have a chance to get all your questions answered. So as always, use the Q&A function in the app or the chat in YouTube to send us your questions, and we'll answer them live. Please remember to state your name, especially if we need to follow up with you or it might be a question that needs more information later. If you haven't been receiving my emails with your background materials, please let me know at ally@zerocancer.org. You should have also received an email from the domain advocacyassociates.com at some point in the last hour or so. Double check your spam or your junk mail if you don't have it yet, but that is the first link to your schedules. I know we have folks also who are watching our sessions that aren't specifically registered to attend Hill meetings. I'm really, really glad all y'all are here, and I hope it's informative and inspiring you to join us for Hill meetings next year in person. We'll also give you the opportunity on Monday to send emails to your members of Congress supporting the asks so that we can really amplify the message of the folks going to the virtual meetings. And I would like to welcome our first guest, that is Advocate Sharon Rose.
I find that advocacy is very rewarding for me because I'm a loving person. And having gone through this experience with my dad, and I advocated in his honor because he was a man who always gave back to his community. So I guess you can say it was kind of inbred in me. But prostate cancer it's not something that you would just think about every day. I mean, you don't sort of grow up going through life knowing anything about it. So when it came into my inner circle with my father, and I understood then going through everything with him, I made every appointment, met with urologists, radiologists, and just going through this whole experience with my father, I realized that prostate cancer was more than just a disease itself, and how much it affects everything about a person's self-worth. So I joined, when I had the opportunity to join Zero as an advocate and to be able to make a difference, and at the same time of knowing, I learned through advocacy how much that it affected my race, how much it affected the African-American man. And having a husband, having brothers, having nephews, cousins. I sit here in Texas, and I'm right here close to the base, Fort Hood. And there's a lot of people, retirees and veterans, who have stayed in the area that have benefited from my advocacy. And that makes me feel so good to have a friend that is going through something, and they're able to call and say, Sharon, we really appreciate the fact that you're out there for us. I need help with this. I need help with that. And I learned so much. The summit is so rewarding. It's not just about the prostate cancer. It's about the survivors and the caregivers. To exchange the information, to support each other. A problem halved is a problem shared, is when you know that you're not the only one that's going through this. And it's uplifting, and the support, the camaraderie, and the knowledge is just unbelievable, to learn so much about all the professional people that the summit, that Zero brings in, from radiologists, urologists, new techniques, new medications. I love being a part of something that is constantly evolving. I truly enjoy going to the Congress. I love being there and to be able to communicate in the field that I'm going right to the source to get help for men and their families. I have been advocating for, I guess, maybe now going into my 11th year. And I just can't tell you how rewarding that is, to be able to help someone. to constantly stay in the moment. It's happening all the time. To be there, to be that support for somebody is just truly rewarding. And I sing zero in the advocacy for prostate cancer to the hilts. And I would love to see more people get involved, because prostate cancer was just something that wasn't always on the radar. But it's very important, and it affects all of our lives, men and women and children. We're all in this together.
Thank you to Sharon. I think it's so incredibly powerful when y'all go to your meetings and it's obvious that this is personal for you, right? That this is a personal passion because of people you love, because of people you know. And so, that's what we hope will come through in your story. Our next guest comes to us from Advocacy Associates. That's the platform we're using for our virtual meetings. Lincoln will take questions at the end, so please submit those in the app or the chat as you listen. And you should have received your email with your link to the scheduling portal. So if you want to have that up, you'll be able to look through some of what he's talking about. So welcome, Lincoln Clapper.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lincoln. I'm part of the Advocacy Associates team here. I wanted to quickly review your scheduling platform for next week and walk you through how to navigate that. I know the schedules have just been sent out recently, and it looks like about 40% of you have already looked at your schedule. And so this quick slideshow is going to show you how to navigate the platform appropriately. So let's get started here. I'll share my screen. So you should have received an email from us that will look something like this. It would have come from Advocacy Day at advocacyassociates.com, highlighted here in green. The URL within that email is your individual link to your individual schedule. So you're going to want to click on that link. It will automatically log you in, and you'll be launched into your meetings. If you think you have not received this email, please check your spam or junk folder. It more than likely ended up there if you haven't received it in your inbox. Go ahead and unmark that as spam for future correspondence, because that's how we're going to be communicating with you regarding changes and updates and anything of that regard over the next couple days. If please follow the instructions for whatever platform you do use to ensure that future correspondence is not flagged as spam as well. So whatever email platform you use, just follow their directions to unmark it properly. If you click on the link and or you become logged out of your schedule at any point, what you want to do here is you're going to end up on a login page that'll look similar to this. You want to click on the Send Me a Sign-In link. Do not try to enter a username or password. Just simply click the Send Me a Sign-In link button, and then go ahead and enter the email address that you registered for this event with, and we'll send you a new refreshed link for your individual schedule. If for some reason you're still not able to log in or you're still having some technical issues, go to the support tab and then fill out the questionnaire, and our tech team will be in touch momentarily to get that resolved. Now, once you're logged into your schedule, you're going to come to the homepage that looks similar to this. So you'll see all of your confirmed meetings on the top part. Any pending meetings that we're still working on will be displayed on the bottom, but you'll at least get a snapshot of all the requests we've made on your behalf. Please note that all times listed are in the Eastern time zone. This is really important to think about in terms of doing the proper time conversion for whichever state you live in. We have taken into account where all of you are located, so your schedule more than likely will take place during normal business hours for whatever time zone you're located in. But just please note that all times on the platform are listed in the Eastern time zone. And I'm going to talk a little bit more later about how we'll be sending you some reminder emails to help keep you on track with that. Now, you just want to hover your cursor over the module for each meeting and simply click on it, and it will launch you into all the information you're going to need. So you'll see something that looks like this. In the upper left-hand corner will be the time and date of that meeting, followed by who you'll be speaking with. So whether that's staff or the member of Congress themselves or both, as in this example. If there's been a meeting lead assigned to your meeting, you'll see that person's name listed beneath that. If not, that area will be blank. And the Join Online Meeting button, this will open up the video component to your meeting. So I think we only have a handful of meetings that do not have a video component. Almost all of them do. You click on the button, it will automatically log you in. The passcode's already been embedded into the link, and so there really isn't much of a process at all other than clicking on that button. Now, you can always dial in as well. That dial-in information will be listed beneath that if you're not able to access via video. In the upper right-hand corner will be your talking points that have been provided to us by the government affairs team, as well as all of your documents. So you'll be able to click on those. It will open up your documents in a separate tab, so you can reference that during your discussions with the offices. You'll be able to have your video portion open, your schedule, and your documents open all at once. So it's not like you have to choose one over the other. Beneath that will be a list of the attendees who are in the meeting with you, and you're actually able to contact each other via our peer-to-peer chat function. If you click on that chat bubble, you can send direct messages to each other, and you'll get a notification about that from our system if somebody does message you. On the left-hand side will be your reporting section. So the first option is the check-in feature. We're asking everybody to check in 5 minutes prior to each meeting, and I'll be reviewing that information later on. We'll be sending this to the Zero Government Affairs team after the event. This will just help them reference who was present and who was not for these meetings. Below that will be your send thank you note. This has been a crafted email by the Zero team, a pre-written email that you can you'll be able to send to Capitol Hill on your behalf. So you can open this in one of two ways. One, you can open it via the open email button, the blue button there on top. That will open up the native platform on your computer. So for example, I use Outlook, and if I were to select that, it would open up an Outlook email for me pre-written. Not all computers have it. Maybe you might be using a personal device or whatnot. So in that case, if you're using, a Gmail or a Yahoo, etc., simply copy that text with those three buttons beneath the open email button. It will copy it to your clipboard, and you can paste that information into the necessary fields from there. Beneath that will be your meeting report form. And so these are feedback questions that the team would like all of you to answer after each meeting concludes. So simply click on that button. You'll be presented with a list of questions. Go through and answer them. Click submit when you get to the bottom, and you'll be all finished. And so we're going to be sending this information to Allie and her team, and this is going to be really critical for their follow-up with these offices after your event. So please take some time and answer these questions after each meeting. Beneath that will be a take note section. This is essentially just a blank notepad. This allows you to jot down notes throughout the course of the meeting. It's optional. You don't need to utilize it. It's really just a resource in case you do not have pen or paper available. Beneath that is the member attend, did not attend option. This is referring to the member of Congress. So we want you to mark if the member of Congress attended this meeting or not. Again, really helpful information for Allie and her team as they go through follow-up post-meeting and in the weeks and months after this event. Beneath that are some social media share buttons. For all of you social media fans out there, you're able to share this information via those buttons. Once the meeting concludes, you'll just click on the meetings tab in the upper left corner. It will take you back to the home page, and you can work your way down from one meeting to the next to the next. Beside that is a legislators tab. This will take you to a bio for each member of Congress that will look like this, along with links to all of their social media pages as well. If you're tracking any particular bills, there will be a bill, those bills will be listed in the bill section along with the vote history of how that members voted on that bill. If you're not tracking any bills, then this area will be blank. The news section just pulls any relevant news articles across the internet that have been mentioned, along with that member's committee assignments, so you can spend some time doing some homework there as well. Lastly, on the home page, your three options, the messages tab, this will take you to an area where you can view that peer-to-peer messaging that you're sending back and forth. The directory will be a master directory of every advocate in your event. So you're not just limited to people in your meetings. You can contact anyone across the event. And the support tab will be your best friend in case there's any scheduling assistance, if you have a conflict, not able to make a meeting, if you have any technical assistance, go to the support tab, fill that out, and our team will be in touch shortly. Underneath the more section, this is just another area where you can view your resources through a different method. There's also some what to expect videos there if you'd like to spend some extra time looking at those. Last slide here, some relevant information and reminders to highlight. Again, please check your spam or junk folder to ensure you haven't missed that email from us. And our domain is at advocacyassociates.com in case you need to use that information in your settings to unmark us as spam. We're asking everybody to call into the meeting 5 minutes prior to the start time in order for you to discuss with your group who's going to be opening the conversation, but also to give you some bandwidth in case maybe you've dialed in the wrong access code or you're having some Wi-Fi issues and you need to reboot. We want to make sure everyone's just in the room ready to rock and roll by the time the office joins. All times, again, are listed in the Eastern time zone on your schedule. However, you will receive a reminder email 1 hour prior to every single meeting throughout the course of your event from us with a link to your schedule and all the information that you'll need for that particular meeting. So we really will try to stay on top of you throughout the course of the event. There wasn't any mix-up in the time zone differential. In case you have a technical difficulty with your computer, again, in that email, you'll have all the information for your meeting, including the dial-in, the Zoom link, the office, and who you're speaking with, along with the time. That way you can access it via mobile device if needed, if it's an emergency. If the office doesn't join your meeting within 10 minutes past the start time, we're going to ask you to hang up and let us know. The last thing we want is for you to hang on for 15, 20, 30 minutes and just knowing that the office had a mix-up and they weren't able to make it. We would rather get proactive, get out in front of that. That way we can get in touch with them and reschedule for you later in the day. And again, that help number will be listed in the support tab along with a form submission to complete in case you need to get a hold of us very quickly. So you can access that information on your homepage. Please also know meetings have been scheduled in 15-minute blocks. These may, of course, end early or go a little bit longer, but it's important to keep that in mind as you all do preparation, just understanding the standpoint of how these were arranged. They were arranged in 15-minute increments. Any changes to your schedule, the day of the event will be sent to you via email. Again, very important. So make sure you're checking that regularly throughout the course of the day and that you have us unmarked as spam. The last three are just some general reminders. Make sure you're in an area with good Wi-Fi connection throughout the course of the day. Please mute your microphone if you are not speaking during your meetings and know your audience. You'll be meeting with both Republicans and Democrats, so make sure you have an appropriate background. And then with that, looking very much forward to working with you all next week and executing this event. And I will turn it back over to Allie and her team if there are any questions.
Thanks, Lincoln. We've gotten a couple of questions here, and we do appreciate your time. I think that most people have gotten their schedules, and those who haven't, they've started letting me know, and we've been communicating back with your team to make sure they've got access. So I think that's going smoothly. I wanted to ask, does this work on a mobile device, the platform? How does it look?
Yes, it does. It will configure based on whatever screen size you have. So if that is your only way of accessing this, you can access it mobilely, but it's really recommended to be in front of a computer or a laptop to utilize the best experience. But yes, it is accessible on your phone.
Okay.
Your smartphone.
You. And then next question here is, the support tab is live, right? So if it's a time sensitive issue, they should still look at that support tab and use that contact function, right? Correct,
yes. And there will be a phone number listed there as well in case it's extremely time sensitive where you need to call somebody.
Okay. This is a question that I actually suspect I have to answer. Can people customize the thank you email? And I believe we did in our setup select the option to have it customizable. So that's a choice that folks will have. If something is shared on social media, if you click that option, what exactly is shared? Like, what does it generate?
It'll generate just a generic template that they're able to go in and edit and customize. So you're able to link your that particular meeting. So it will show some of that content on there, showing that you met with X office at this time. But the attendees are free to go in and edit that and post whatever they'd like.
Okay, so it doesn't automatically send out anything if they get the chance to edit it.
Yeah, you get to approve everything. Yep.
Excellent. I've got a question about meetings that are outside of your district, and I'll go ahead and field this. And I think the answer to that is, if you are scheduled for a meeting in your platform schedule, they're expecting you at that meeting. So it might be because you're grouped with someone from a neighboring state or a neighboring district. And we do want you guys to have the chance to continue to go through your meetings together, right? So you can build a rhythm together. You all bring slightly different things to the conversation. Just because you're not all constituents of a specific member of Congress doesn't mean that the conversation together as a group isn't still valuable. Though, you know, the constituent might want to be the lead for that particular meeting. All right. We'll give folks one more minute here for any other questions. Refresh my app here. All right. I think that we are okay. And if folks have any more questions, do please email me. Either I'll be able to answer them, I'll be able to connect you with folks at Advocacy Associates who can. All right. Thank you, Lincoln.
Thanks, Allie.
Okay, so most of those meetings will be with Hill staffers, but I wanted to actually bring in a member of Congress to say hello. Please welcome Senator Blunt from Missouri.
Hi, I'm Senator Roy Blunt. I want to welcome the Zero advocates to your virtual Hill Day. I'm pleased to be able to speak to you today. Prostate cancer is one of the most common cancers among men in the United States and the second leading cause of male cancer deaths. I know that statistic because I'm a prostate cancer survivor myself. And as chairman of the Appropriations Subcommittee that funds the National Institutes of Health and Centers for Disease Control, I've supported research and public health programs to ensure that others have access to research and prevention programs. My support's not just because I'm a survivor, it's because more men survive this disease through screening and early diagnosis and with more advanced treatments than have happened before. I've focused my support for both through targeted funding for medical research and public health efforts. Over the past 5 years, we've increased funding for the NIH by $11.6 billion, just under 40%. This year's bill will provide another billion plus. And as funding's increased for the National Cancer Institute, grant applications for the National Cancer Institute have increased by approximately 50% since 2013. What happened when we began this increase in funding is young researchers decided they were going to have a future in research and stayed in the research field, and other researchers began to build on the research they'd done in the past. It's exciting to see these increases, but it's important to ensure that there's adequate funding to explore the very best concepts that people have out there. Last year's labor HHS bill included $212.5 million for NCI to specifically support more research awards and improve the grant success rate. This year's Senate labor HHS bill includes another $85+ million. Importantly, during this time, there have been huge research gains in cancer research, including the expansion of immunotherapy and cancer vaccines, both of which are being used to treat prostate cancer. The past 5 years have been an exciting time in research, much of it due to the significant and sustained funding that's been provided to the NIH. I hope we continue to look forward to finalizing this year's bill, but your support makes a difference. Talk to the people in Congress, me included, who work for you, and explain why this research commitment matters, explain the success we're having, and the added success we need to have. In addition to research efforts to combat prostate cancer, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have focused on helping men make informed decisions related to screening and related to treatment. Further, we've worked with CDC to enhance prostate cancer data in cancer registries to learn about patterns of care and demographics for those with prostate cancer, and also promoting healthcare providers' knowledge and awareness of prostate cancer screening. Last year, the labor HHS bill provided an 8% increase to enhance CDC's prostate cancer efforts. Finally, since 1997, through the Department of Defense, the Prostate Cancer Research Program has been dedicated to supporting research focused on eradicating prostate cancer. The Department of Defense program seeks to promote highly innovative and groundbreaking research as prostate cancer is a real threat to U.S. service members. The Prostate Cancer Research Program works to address critical gaps in prostate cancer research and patient care to improve the quality of life for survivors of prostate cancer. I'm proud to support $110 million in the Defense Appropriations Bill for prostate cancer research, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do the same in this year's bill. I appreciate the time that you spend advocating to end prostate cancer. Together we can stop this disease, we can find it earlier, we can find better behavior and better treatment. I want to thank you for being here virtually this year and look forward to you being here in person next year. Thank you.
Thank you to Senator Blunt. Now, what he doesn't know, because we haven't had our meetings yet and haven't asked him yet, is that we're actually asking for $120 million for the PCRP this year, right? So it's wonderful that he is supportive of last year's number, but we're going to go in and push him up over the edge, right? And if you're wondering about kind of how to push someone like Senator Blunt from 110 to 120, and what a virtual meeting is going to look and feel like, because many of you have advocated for zero in the past, but probably most of you have not done this virtually. I certainly hadn't done a lot of this before, a year ago. You're in luck though, because one of the unique components of having a virtual meeting this year is instead of getting up and play acting a Hill meeting for you, which is lots of fun for us, and I think everyone gets a big kick out of, but we were able to have a real meeting last week and record it. So Susan and I visited the office, virtually visited the office of Representative Mario Diaz-Balart from South Florida with Susie Schlernitz-Sauer, who many of you know, if nothing else, from her Bold for Blue Award Sunday night. We're grateful to Susie for being a guinea pig on this, but we're actually going to go ahead and watch that meeting right now, so you get to see exactly what a real meeting feels like.
Kristen and Allie, and Sarah, thank you for taking the time to visit with us today. I've got Allie and Susie joining us, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we just want to talk to you a little bit about some prostate cancer advocacy priorities that Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer, has for this upcoming fiscal year and this Congress, and just kind of walk you through some of those and see where those might align with Mr. Diaz-Balart's interests as well. So Allie, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll let Susie go. Allie, you are muted.
It's real. Hi, Kirsten and Sarah. Thank you so much. I'm Allie Manson. I am the VP of Government Relations and Advocacy with Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer. And we're just so grateful that you guys and your boss have made time for us today.
And my name's Susie Schlernitz-Sauer, and I am the regional advocate for South Florida, and grew up in Hialeah, and my brother and sister-in-law are one of Congressman Diaz-Balart's constituents. And I'm here to talk to you from a personal family perspective about someone who has lost a relative to prostate cancer. And the things that we'd like to talk to you about today, number one, is our prostate cancer research program that is through the Department of Defense. The Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program provides high risk, high reward investigation and research into new prostate cancer drugs and diagnostic tools. And out of this program over the last several years, we've gotten five drugs, three of which have been around for a while, which is Xgeva, Xtandi, and Zytiga. And most recently, we've added two new ones, which is Erleada and Rubraca. And the Rubraca had been utilized and FDA approved for something else. And they found that now it works for prostate cancer, and it's for advanced stage men that have metastasis. And also out of this research program came a new diagnostic tool, which is called the Oncotype DX. When men are diagnosed with prostate cancer, they don't necessarily know exactly which course of care the patient's going to respond best to. And through this Oncotype DX, it will allow the physicians to know whether the patient's going to respond better to chemotherapy or whether he would respond best to some of the oral chemotherapeutics. So This prostate cancer research program does not duplicate any of the investigation and research being done at NCI or NIH. This is solely a free standalone program that, like I said, does not duplicate the investigation. This program had been level funded at $80 million for 11 years. And we all know that the cost of healthcare has not been level funded. And I can speak to you from personal perspectives in that I own a medical audit company here in Miami. So I see the direct costs of what medical care is. We are seeking a $10 million increase over what our budget approval was last year. Last year, we were allowed $110 million, and we're asking for a $10 million increase to $120 million. There is a Dear Colleague letter that's going to be circulated, the Bishop Dunn letter, and we understand that the congressman sits on the Appropriations Committee as well as the Defense. And so it's not that he can sign a letter to himself. So we would ask that he include in his personal communications to his colleagues any information about support of this Bishop Dunn letter for us, seeking the $120 million prostate cancer research program.
Yeah, we can definitely, if you send that letter to us, we can definitely look it over and talk to the congressman. Susan, do you have our appropriation form?
I do. We have your form.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we've got all of that covered. So no worries there. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, thank you.
And we can send over to you too, Sarah. We have a listing of CDMRP, PCRP grants that were made in Florida in the last several years. And I'm looking at it right now. It looks like, I think the most recent was perhaps to the Moffitt Cancer Center in 2018. But
okay,
that is grant funding that has come back to Florida across the state, it looks like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I believe the University of Miami Jackson Memorial or Sylvester Cancer Center has also got some of the funds out of the PCRP.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, if you can send that over, that'd be great.
Thanks, Sarah. We know that Mr. Diaz-Balart is a great supporter of biomedical research. So we are really appreciative for anything y'all can do on CDMRP and the DoD bill. So very much appreciate y'all taking a look at that.
Yeah, of course.
And we are also looking for, in the CDC, there's some report language that we would like to have included in the fiscal year 22 Labor H appropriations report. And I believe that that's going to be sent to you under separate cover so that you have the actual language. But we're seeking for the committee to provide $16.2 million. And I don't believe it's a change over last year for the ongoing work that they're doing as far as cancer screening for risks and treatment, as well as a $3 million add-on for an initiative to increase the outreach and education in our high-risk population, predominantly the African-American men, which are 2 times more likely to die from prostate cancer. And again, this doesn't duplicate any of the work being done in any of the other silos, NIH, NCI, or anything like that. And it's completely separate. It's not necessarily medical research, but it's to identify and create public awareness for the need for prostate cancer screenings.
You said 16.2 million, correct?
Correct.
And then is that 3 million? Is that a carve out of the 16, or would that be a different program?
It includes 3 million for the outreach and education.
Okay, got it.
So it is a carve out within the 16. Okay. And just to clarify one thing, Sarah, for you, we've been at 14.2, so we are seeking a $2 million increase. We've had a 1 million of that 14.2 has been for that outreach. And so we'd like to get that outreach up to $3 million.
Okay, perfect.
There's definitely a need for it. And that's one of the things. It's like I have the opportunity to do counseling of prostate cancer in my church. And the number of African-American men that get pulled over to talk to me when they speak to one of the pastors and are told, oh yeah, I was just really recently diagnosed with prostate cancer. The next thing I know, pastors dragging them across the auditorium and saying, here, you need to talk to her. So there's definitely a need for the education and the outreach.
And ladies, that's one of the big issues that we have in prostate cancer. So it's there are huge health disparities, and then there's problems with screening. And so our next request really gets to those two items. We're asking for members to co-sponsor a bill that's just recently been reintroduced by Mr. Rush and Dr. Bouchon over on the ENC committee. The bill is the PSA for Him Act, and it's HR 1176. This bill is really important for us because it elevates the USPSTF screening recommendation for prostate cancer from a C rating to an A rating. And I don't know if you're familiar with the USPSTF. They are the United States Preventive Services Task Force, a big, long mouthful there. But they're the group that at HHS is in charge of giving ratings for screening of all different types of things, including, in our case, prostate cancer. And prostate cancer screening is more important than many other screenings things that they might take a look at. And that's because we know that if men are caught early with prostate cancer, so if they're in stage 1, when they're caught with prostate cancer, they have like a 99% survival rate. It's really amazing. We have great drugs and a lot of really aggressive interventions that we can do, or non-aggressive interventions, depending on what kind of cancer they have. But if it's caught late, if it's already metastasized, then they have about a 30% survival rate. And the USPSTF acknowledged that though they were giving prostate cancer a C rating, which is just a rating that says, this is, it's what a C is when you're thinking about school, right? It's okay, but it's not something that's highly important to get. When they were giving it a C rating, they caveated that with saying we really need more data on high-risk men because we believe that they likely need to be screened at a younger age and more aggressively, but we don't have the research data to support that. That research data is longitudinal study kind of stuff. I mean, it takes a long time to gather. That's like a 10 or 20-year look back for us to prove that we need a higher rating for African-American men or men with a family history of prostate cancer. And any doctor treating prostate cancer this is very common practice, is to make sure that those men who have a family history or African-American are screened sooner and more often than men who have no family history or who aren't in an otherwise at-risk category. And so what we're asking to do is for Congress to give some common sense to that rating and see if we can get the screening, the PSA screening for African-American men and high-risk men in general, an A. If it receives an A rating from USPSTF, then there is no copay associated with its coverage. That goes back to the ACA and tying USPSTF screening recommendations to what insurance companies are allowed to charge folks for. And so that's not the only barrier, as Susie and others can tell you, especially in the African-American population or in other high-risk populations. But what we're trying to do is chip away at every little barrier we can to get more men screened. Because again, if we screen you early, if we catch it early, you survive. If we catch it late, there's a high risk chance that you don't. And that's more costly for the government, and it's more tragic for people across the country, as Susie can tell you.
The cost of care is far, far reduced if it's caught early than when you get into the absolute metastatic syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
Real quick, do you know when the rating was made a C rating? What year they did that?
2018.
2018? Okay.
Yep. And so
from a D, where they were discouraging the physicians from doing it, to now C, meaning that they were the decision between the man and the doctor.
Got it.
So we're excited that we went from a D to a C, but for those high risk populations, we really need to be more aggressive than that if we want to catch it early. Our numbers this year for prostate cancer diagnosis and death are scary. So after years of decline in our death rates for prostate cancer, we're seeing that number creep back up. We now have 7,000 more men a year dying of prostate cancer in 2021 than we did in 2017. We had pretty steady diagnosis rates, and then they dropped for a few years, and now they've jumped back up we're seeing like a 30% growth rate and diagnosis of prostate cancer this year. And we believe, and I think a lot of clinicians will tell you, this goes back to a lot of uncertainty around the USPSTF screening decision. And it really interjected a whole lot of ambiguity in the conversations with men about when they should be getting screened and what that should look like. And we ended up in a situation where USPSTF was arguing one thing, and every other professional society having to do with prostate cancer was arguing another thing. We've made some intermittent progress, a little step forward with USPSTF to get to that C rating, but we really need to get them in line with the state of the science on African American and other high risk men for that A rating. So we just appreciate your support in the Rush Bouchon bill, which does just a little preemption of USPSTF, and it just is pretty simple and says, just read this rating as if it were an A. And we do have precedent for that. You probably won't recall, but during the ACA debate 10 years ago, USPSTF came out with a recommendation on mammography and said that women under the age of 50 should not have mammographies. Now, we're all women here, and we know that, it's been drilled into us since an early age that once you hit the age of 40, you start getting an annual mammogram. The women of the Senate went berserk, and they had these series of speeches on the floor and held things up and got a statutory change included in ACA that overrode the USPSTF decision on mammography. Since then, they've come back and revisited that decision and made it and changed it. So I think there's some common sense. They have to do this, just look at these studies and tell you what the studies find, and that's all. They don't get to inject some common sense into a lot of what they're doing. And so we'd like to follow the precedent of breast cancer, just like we do with research. We're just trying to get prostate cancer up to parity on the CDMRP program and enjoying the same benefits for screening coverage that breast cancer has.
It eliminates one of those financial barriers to the men being diagnosed at an earlier age. So eliminating that copay and treating it as we do the mammography as part of a woman's wellness exam.
Right.
That parity, it's only right.
I was just looking, I saw that you sent over actual one-pagers, which is really helpful. So we can definitely talk to the congressman and kind of, see where he's at. Typically, he doesn't sign on to a lot of bills because he is on the appropriations committee. He kind of likes to do his work through that avenue, but we can definitely bring it up to him and kind of see, where to go from there.
Absolutely. Hey, Sarah, if the congressman wants to change the USPSTF rating with a rider on the appropriations bill, we're all for that. but assuming he doesn't, we'd love to have him co-sponsor.
Of course.
Co-sponsor if he feels comfortable with that. So thanks for taking a look. We really
of course.
it. And then we have one more bill that we're really excited about that's about to be reintroduced. I'll let Allie talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like disparities is in a big way the theme of everything we're talking about this year. And aside from African American men with a family history, veterans and members of the military are at an also increased risk for prostate cancer. So it's about 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed today in the general population. It's about 1 in 5 in the military and veterans population. So we have a bill. It is not yet reintroduced, but will be soon from Congressman Neil Dunn. And it's designed essentially just to go ahead and create a prostate cancer clinical treatment pathway at the VA. So the VA, I think in some ways offers the best prostate cancer care in the country, right? They have centers of excellence in the precision oncology program that are outstanding, but there are 12 of them. There are almost 200 VA medical centers across the country. And what we're concerned about, of course, is consistency of care, right? Patients in Fort Worth, Texas, or any other kind of small, I think Columbia, South Carolina was another one, getting the same kind of care that you can get at one of those centers of excellence that are really dotted kind of on the coast and much more limited in their reach. So the prostate cancer clinical treatment pathway would go ahead and look at a soup to nuts approach, right? So everything from education and screening at the front end through diagnosis, treatment, and, if needed, palliative care, and look at what procedures and treatments should be available to veterans with or at risk of prostate cancer. It passed the House last year, actually last September. It was, at that point, it was HR 1693. We're hoping it'll be reintroduced in the next few weeks by Congressman Dunn. And we just kind of ran out of time and getting it through the Senate. So we'll be reintroducing this year. And when it does, again, we'd love to have your boss's co-sponsorship. I think that this is in some ways, small tweak, but the VA has some cancer clinical treatment pathways for other diseases, and prostate cancer is actually the most prevalent cancer within the VA, which isn't a huge surprise, right? You've got a lot of men, especially Vietnam era veterans, because of Agent Orange, who are, diagnosed at a much, much higher rate. And this is just a fairly simple solution in our eyes that we hope we can move pretty quickly with in the next month or so.
Okay, yeah, whenever it gets reintroduced, if you could let us know, that would be great. Our colleague, Lizzie, she handles VA issues. So once introduced, we can let her know, and then I'm sure she'll look at it and talk to the congressman.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate it. Sarah, do you have any other questions for us, Sarah or Kristen?
I think I'm all set.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate your time.
You are.
Oh, no, of course. We're happy to meet.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate your time, and you have our one-pagers, but we'll be following up with more information, and also just want to be a resource for you on prostate cancer issues in case they ever come across your desk. And we get called from time to time from members and their staffs when there's a diagnosis nearby, and so we're happy to be a resource for that, or for anything you really want to know about the CDMRP program at DoD, the CDC outreach, what we're doing at the VA, or screening coverage. So
okay, perfect. It's good to know.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I was just going to say, I think Susie can probably be a tremendous resource in terms of some of the patient services, right? When you've got constituents diagnosed, I mean, the things that she knows about and the resources we have available, she's the master of them.
Unfortunately, I learned about them the hard way through losing my brother to prostate cancer 2.5 years ago. And I'm in this for the long haul. I want to make sure that there's not another family that has to go through what ours did, through the loss of a loved one. And if there's one thing, and I promised my brother, if I make a difference for one man, then what he endured was not in vain. So I'm here. I'm in South Florida. Use me.
Yep. She's our guru in South Florida. So we just thank you for your time today.
Of course. We're happy to meet, and thank you for sharing, Susie.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for your loss.
My honor.
All right, ladies. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good day.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Well, I think Susan and Susie would both agree it's kind of unnerving to watch yourself and respond and be asked to respond and then not, but it's not live, it's not real. Anyway, that was, first of all, I want to lead off by saying I've seen some comments. You are not expected to be experts, right? Susie's been doing this for a long time, and Susan and I are paid to do this. So hopefully we know mostly what we're talking about. If you guys can go in and say 120 million for PCRP, 16.2 million for CDC, co-sponsor PSA for him, and co-sponsor the Veterans Prostate Cancer Treatment and Research Act when it's introduced, and you can tell your story, right? That is something you bring to the table that's so important. So don't worry, you don't need to be experts in this. You need to remember the top points and you need to tell your story. And Susan, now that I've talked about how great our meeting was, do you think we should critique it a little bit? There are things I wish I'd done differently.
Well, absolutely. And so what we didn't do was we met up beforehand. We decided who was going to do what talking points. And we didn't re-record multiple times. We just let it roll. You saw Allie, stay on mute for a second. You saw me stumble over way too many words. I think Susie at one point put out a wrong number, and then we corrected it later on. That's how meetings are going to go. And we wanted to give you the real deal of what a meeting looks like. And so, I think what we really want you all to do is to get together in your group. You have each other's email address to connect before you do your meetings next week. Walk through who's going to be the leader of the group, doing the welcome and the close, right? And making sure the introductions go around and we're staying on task for each point. Who's going to be like the secretary? Who's going to be taking notes and writing down what they're saying, and then filling out the follow-up form and reporting back to Allie and the team about how that meeting went. So you need to do some assignments there. And maybe you want to divide up the talking points, and just like we did, where Susie talks about appropriations and I talked about PSA for him. Probably too long about PSA for him. Rewatching that, I was like, should have cut that in half. And then Allie had the VA bill, right? So divide things up and then be there waiting for an opportunity later in the conversation if there's something that needs to be corrected. Don't just jump in over each other, let each other talk and own those talking points. And then if there's an opportunity with some Q&A from the staff and you can clarify a point or correct a point, do that for each other. But really, like Allie said, your story is the thing that you didn't hear me sharing a prostate cancer story. I have your stories that I know, but they're not mine. And that's such a big differentiator in these meetings. If you can share your story, and if you're just reading the main points, from the talking points and split out 4 other sentences, that is just fine. We can work with that. What we can't do is replicate your story and the impact that it has when we're visiting these members.
And speaking of kind of the group meeting prep, like for example, I wish that I had not referred to Fort Worth, Texas as being and Columbia, South Carolina, but made specific reference to the VAs in Florida, right? Although to be fair, Florida has one of the centers of excellence, but this is where you're also going to get better as you go, right? You're not going to just have one meeting and then be done. You're going to have multiple meetings and you'll have them together. So they'll kind of learn from the first one. And by the time you hit the end of your day, you'll be experts and you'll really flow smoothly. So why don't I pull up our PowerPoint here to talk about some of the do's and don'ts and best practices. So I can share my screen. All right. There we go. All right. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure thing. So you saw that we met with 2 staffers in that meeting. We were meeting with Sarah, who is a legislative assistant, and Kirsten, who is, I believe, a legislative correspondent. And so we just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of who's who in a congressional office. You have the member of Congress, you have a chief of staff, and they're kind of the point person for everything, whether that's administrative things or legislative items. So right under your member is your chief. And then on the legislative side of the house, so the one dealing with policy issues, right under your chief of staff is your legislative director. And then you'll have a few legislative assistants and legislative correspondent. So the main folks that you are generally likely to meet with are going to be your legislative director and legislative assistants. Some of you might have a member of Congress or a chief of staff. Some of you might end up meeting with a staff assistant. So it just kind of runs the gamut. We are really happy meeting with legislative directors and legislative assistants. That's right in our sweet spot. And certainly those are the folks who are taking the meetings and filtering the information and helping members of Congress then take action on what you've asked, right? You could ask a member of Congress to co-sponsor a bill. If he or she is standing by themselves, you got maybe a like 80-20 shot that actually happens, depending on your member. If they're standing next to a staffer, on the other hand, when you ask that question, they turn to the staff and say, take a look at that. And then you get to follow up with the staff, and the staff actually executes that request. So your chances for success go way up when you have a staffer standing next to a member, and the staffers are all taking that information and channeling it in regular meetings they have with their boss to help to ask the boss to decide on, are we co-sponsoring this? Should we sign this letter? Those kinds of things are happening regularly behind the scenes.
And I think we said this before on Monday, but we should say it again. You know, some of these staff members are very young. They're fresh out of college. They are typically very smart. They're certainly very empowered to make decisions, to push their boss towards decisions. So, you know, just go in knowing it might not be the person you would expect to see, but, you know, they are the decision makers there, and they're the channel to the decision makers. So let's click through here. So let's talk about how to prepare. People have gotten their Hill meeting schedules, and you can see in there who else is in your group, but you're also going to get an email connecting your group. I'm going to send it later today. It'll put all of you together on the same chain with all your email addresses, so you can find some time to schedule up a preparatory meeting. Sorry, you can hear my children trickling down from upstairs. But you'll be able to schedule a preparatory meeting and do, if you need help with a platform, I can help you with that. We've got Google Meet, we've got Zoom, we can help you guys connect. And once you've got it on the schedule, let me and Susan know, and we'll try to drop in so we can answer any other questions you might have too. But I'll let you keep going here, Susan.
Sure, not a problem, Allie. So know who your member is. Google your member, go on their website, usually their last name, .house.gov, their official website, and see what news things they're putting out next week, or where their minds are, what committees they are on. So do a little bit of home research and Googling, and get to know who your member is, and what they care about, and what any connection points might be to them. Know your talking points, your legislative priorities. You know, go through those and think about the questions, you know, some basic questions that might be asked. And you saw those come up. One question that you might get a few times if you're meeting with appropriators, that is members, you know, in the House and the Senate that sit on the Appropriations Committee. They might ask, just like Sarah did, about, do you have my form? To make a formal request to an appropriations office, you have to fill out to be in their queue for decisions. You fill out a form, and it's a multi-page form asking them details about the request. How much money are you asking for? What's the justification? All these things, and that helps them then provide information to the committee. The committee takes requests from members of Congress for what to put in the bill, and it's a very formalized process with Excel sheets and Google forms and stuff like that. If you get that request, say, yes, Zero is taking care of the forms. We're taking care of all those forms and writing them and getting them in by the deadlines that the members set forward. So you might get that to pop up in a meeting, that you can let them know that that's being taken care of. You know, and I think just get yourself in a positive and friendly mindset before you walk into the meetings. That's always some of the best preparation is just being a pleasant person to talk to, and share your story with. So, Allie, maybe we can go. Oh, go ahead.
I was to say, you said, you know, share your story. It's that personal story that matters most. And we've got a question about, you know, the meeting we just saw, where we really were we went directly into the ask, and we only looped back around to the personal story at the end. And I'll say that's one of the things I wish we'd done a little bit differently, that we would have led a little bit more with that personal story and really leaned into it. And so they've got leave behind materials, right? We have sent all of the background stuff to them ahead of time. They have the details written down, right, that they can access. What they don't have is access to your personal story after that conversation. So really, it's hopefully what you feel most comfortable with, but it's also, I think, the most important thing. So do feel safe coming back to that, go for it.
Absolutely. I think that Susie did a really good job of teasing it a little bit at the beginning. She shared just a snippet about who she was and her connection, and then she like gave you the real the real hard press at the very end of the meeting, which was artfully and well done. So thought that was good. So what's your meeting going to look like? You'll start with a thank you. Take a second and do some introductions. You saw Susie made the connection about where she lives and family members and referenced towns in the district by name and why we're here. And she touched on that personal story. And then we kind of went through each of the topics. We probably were more exhaustive than you need to be on those topics. Our problem is we have too much in our head on those topics, and it just all wants to come out sometimes. So you're going to be doing a better meeting than we will, because you're not going to spend, I counted like 8 minutes talking about the PSA for Him Act.
We talked too much. It's a thing.
You can spend 2 minutes on the PSA for Him Act, and it will have the same impact as 8 minutes on the PSA for Him Act will. So no worries there. Spend a few minutes on each topic. Don't get, hung up on, did I hit every talking point? Again, they have the information, your personal story and tying back to that at the end is really nice. So plan for a meeting to be 15 to 20 minutes. I think that meeting that we had was about 20 minutes. But know that it could get truncated. The staffer could get on 5 minutes late and say, I'm so sorry, I've only got 10 minutes for this meeting. So great. That means you just move at a faster click, and maybe you don't hit every single talking point, or maybe maybe you truncate your story a little bit and hit the high points. Plan for 15 to 20 minutes, be prepared for 5 minutes, and be willing to stretch out and answer questions and talk for 30. Make sure that you're stopping to ask for questions along the way. That's really important. And of course, you're always going to make a request, the ask at each section along the way when you're talking about our issues.
What's the best kind of meeting for a Hill staffer, Susan, right? It's the one where everybody talks and feels so good and loves each other. And at the end, you never make the ask, so they never have to say no. And they just get to walk away from meeting where everybody's happy, but no one got anything. Right. So they're doing meetings all day long. I was doing some meetings the other day where we were doing meetings with Hill staff every 15 minutes. And man, that's tough to sit in front of your screen and hear a new issue every 15 minutes, right? That you're trying to absorb. That's what they're trying to do. And so you want to be brief, to the point, concise, but all colored with a personal story that comes back to that ask. I think our next slide talks about do's and don'ts, but why don't you guys go ahead and put in the chat function on YouTube, put in the Q&A, tell us your do's and don'ts. Start spitting those at us and we'll move on to the slide. I don't want to move to the slide till you've had a chance to throw some ideas out there. Just a second.
Yeah, I will be curious to see, especially you returning advocates, if you remember some good do's and don'ts. And of course, now we're in a virtual world, right? So one of the don'ts we used to have was like, don't show up 30 minutes early to the office and sit out in the waiting room and be a lurker when they only have 2 seats in their waiting room anyway. Y'all have heard me talk about that before. We had to eliminate that don't from the list this year, because we do want you to be maybe a little early. I think that's an obvious one that many of y'all will get. But I'm curious to know what y'all are thinking.
All right, we're jumping to the slides, but I'm going to go ahead and refresh my feed here. Don't talk politics. I think we've got that on here somewhere.
Good. Can you all imagine anything worse than getting into a debate about politics right now with any of these members of Congress?
Like a lot of people saying don't talk politics, so I think that one sunk in.
Good.
All right. How early? What is on time? It's 5 minutes early.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We got some stay on subject, right? We're on topic. I think you guys are doing a pretty good job of hitting what we have on the list here. Let's see, if you're a constituent, let's share it. Make sure they know that they know.
That's a
Do
great
make
one.
the asks. Don't overstay your welcome.
Right.
That's a good one. Be comfortable, be yourself, be prepared. I like them. I like them all. What do you think, Susan?
I
What do we
think those
got there?
sound good. Yeah. One thing, I think we've been over most of these, already, and a lot of these, just to emphasize, don't kind of shoot from the hip. If they ask a question and you don't know the answer, come back and say, we'll get you that information. And then, include that in your follow-up form, or shoot an email to Allie or me and say, this staffer from this office asked this question and I didn't know. So that's what we're here for.
Right. There's absolutely nothing wrong with not knowing the answer. Right. There is a problem with telling them something that's not true. Right. So go with option A. I've got someone saying, don't tell corny jokes. I feel like that's a matter of personal preference. Depends on how corny they are.
Yeah.
So I do have a question here. Do we have copies of what's already been sent to the staffers? So the staffers received more or less the same materials that you did in your advocate guide. Some of them were a little bit more limited. And in that portal that Lincoln walked through earlier, right, you've got the meeting information on one side and you've got materials and links on the other side. You will have the leave behind materials available there. So you'll be able to reference them. Also available in there will be the talking points that are in your advocate guide. So you've got that kind of easy, hopefully, you've used the platform to go to your meeting screen, which means everything should be in the same place. But this, I think, comes back to get together as a group beforehand, plan your meeting together, figure out who's going to say what, who's going to lead, how you're going to do it so you're not tripping over each other, which happens, right? Especially virtually, but also in person.
But I think if you divide up the talking points and verbally hand off to each other, it really helps when you're doing a meeting like this. So if only one person owns the talking points, they hand off to the next person for the next issue, it makes it a little less awkward. It's still always going to be a little awkward, and I think the staff own that and we own that, so it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I want to also stick to the things to do after a meeting, right? Send that thank you email, and not within a few days. You can do it while you're in that portal right there. It makes it very, very easy for you, and use that function that lets you report back to us. The questions are customized, so you can report, they agreed to co-sponsor, they agreed to send a letter, they didn't. And I think there's a little question section where you can put any notes that we need to know about. So we'll have access to all of that information. You're also always free to email me, email Susan. We're here. We're on email all the time. So if there are questions and things you need, do that. Do you have anything else in this? Oh, and that actually brings me, I got ahead of myself here.
So one other thing is we want you to do this follow-up. Why do we want you to do the follow-up? Because we want you to start a relationship. I think we have some really great examples of you advocates that have started relationships with members of Congress and their staff, where you're going in and seeing the same ones year in and year out. And they really, I can think of my time as a staffer and can still think back on several advocates for different diseases that came in every year. And I really got to know them. I got to know their disease, their progression through it, and what their asks were, right? And that was so important. It really makes you, as a staffer, really want to help more when you have that relationship. And we just want you all to grow in relationship with this staff and with your member of Congress, who, after all, is representing you in Congress. And you should have an open door for you and your issues. One way that you can do that, in addition to sending a thank you note, is to look for when we reopen and things start getting back to normal later, hopefully later at the end of the summer and the fall, when your member starts doing events in the district or in the state, finding opportunities to go to a town hall and thank them for, having somebody meet with you, and thank them for them the increased dollar amounts and things like that. Attending those events that they're having, and then, kind of staying in touch when there's new information that comes out. Let's not overshare. Let's not over communicate. If you're emailing them once a month, that might be a little too much. But a touch every, a few times a year, once or twice in between the fly-in would absolutely make sense and be beneficial.
And we've got one more question in the chat here that I think is useful for this kind of unique environment. What do we wear? Is it business casual? And I think this is one of those funny things. It's business. It's the business mullet, right? Business on top, casual on the bottom. But it is, I think, a little bit more casual than, at least what I've seen so far. People are a little more casual than they are in person. There aren't a ton of ties.
Yeah, we're not seeing suits. We're seeing fewer ties. We're still seeing button-up shirts, gentlemen. We are not seeing hoodies. If you wear a hoodie, I'm gonna come find you. Because don't wear a hoodie on this thing, right? We're gonna be. Look at Jamie. Cue the appropriate attire for a man. Now, for us ladies, we know it's always harder, right? So don't come in straight from your workout with your hair in a bun. Do look like you put some thought into what you were wearing. But, look, don't wear a t-shirt, don't wear a tank top, don't wear a hoodie. Look nice. Jamie's perfectly modeling the look. You could even have just a button-up shirt and still be fine. And for ladies, wearing a nice top is a good thought there. So the good news is we don't have to talk to you about like bringing an umbrella or like wearing, the heel debate. I mean, y'all have seen me like have the flats and the heels and the big bag that I, am constantly shifting out of. So
we're traveling lighter these days. Right. Okay, are we hitting, I think, one more time our key takeaways? Right? Susan, your turn. I feel like I've said this a lot.
Only 4 things that you need to remember. Well, let's say 5 things to remember. Your story, which you already know. $120 million for the PCRP program. There's 2 Dear Colleague letters for that. $16.2 million for prostate cancer activities at CDC. We're asking members to co-sponsor the PSA for Him Act, which is HR 1176. If you're a senator, you need to know about it because we'd love to have you introduce it in the Senate. And then we're asking members to co-sponsor the Prostate Cancer Treatment and Research Act when Congressman Dunn reintroduces that. We're still looking for a Democrat in the House and 2 senators that might be able to introduce that. So those are your message points.
Right, easy peasy. All right, let's go ahead and we can start wrapping up for today. I can escape. There we go. So I can actually see my screen here. I really want to just thank you to everyone today. You've been absolutely wonderful, and we're really grateful that you've given us so much of your time. You'll get an email again from me this evening. Please reach out if you have questions. You'll also get an email connecting your groups. Schedule time to get together, talk, share that schedule with me, and I'll make sure that Susan or I does our best to drop in because, to answer any other questions you have. I do want to just give a quick word about tomorrow. Our session tomorrow is completely pre-recorded, so you're free to watch it anytime. I know this has been a big time commitment, and we're trying to be respectful of that. And you're not even done yet. So that said, I will be on YouTube when it airs from 12 to 1:30 answering questions in the chat. So there is some benefit to watching it live. Join me on YouTube. It'll be fun. And we've got one last special guest today. Jamie, do you have any special tips for our advocates other than that they should dress like you?
Well, that's the first time that I think I've ever heard anybody should dress like me. But I appreciate the compliment from you and Susan. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Allie. It's great to drop in, and I hope everybody's learning a lot. And not only learning a lot, but being able to, as they just went through in their last slide, prioritize it. If you can remember one thing, it's to be able to increase $10 million to the prostate cancer research program. But had those 4 things handy because that's going to really not only be able to increase prostate cancer research funding, but really be able to improve upon access to care for men who are fighting prostate cancer, especially those who are at increased risk, which means men of color and those who are veterans, as well as family members, those who have a family history. But I just want to say thank you for being part of the summit. I know that we all know that it's a significant time commitment to do that, to put your heart and your time and your energy into this. I know that a lot of you have been on all week long since we started on Sunday. We had Cal Ripken as part of the summit, but I want you to know that you're the real MVPs of the summit, because without you, we simply can't end prostate cancer. It's so true. I don't know how many times Allie and Susan shared this, but you are the MVPs of the summit. We can't end prostate cancer without you, because you, all of you, are the champions to carry the message of countless patients and survivors and family members who are not taking part of the advocacy experience, who can't take part of the advocacy experience, and also for those who are no longer with us, who would like nothing more to see an end to prostate cancer. You're the messengers, you're the champions to get this done. As I said before, we're asking for an increase of $10 million to the prostate cancer research program. And I don't know if this message got shared before, but quick story. A few years back, we're actually fighting to keep the prostate cancer research program stable, level funded for the year. And a meeting that we had with a member of Congress in Florida really resonated with their staff in a way that that staffer went to their member of Congress and said, hey, like, this is a really compelling ask. I mean, look at where some of these other diseases are. Look how much is getting done for prostate cancer at the Department of Defense, and made a compelling case for that member of Congress to stand up on the House floor and make an amendment in the middle of the debate after the committee had already decided on funding. And it did not get the $10 million increase. However, it didn't get it for that year, but however, it gave such a message that when we came back the following year and brought everybody to Capitol Hill as part of the summit, that story really resonated in a way that the Appropriations Committee at the Department of Defense remembered that and felt as though that there's really need to make prostate cancer more of a national priority and put that increase through. And that all came from just one meeting, and that can be your meeting. Any one of you could have that meeting, have that phone call coming up next week and the days ahead that could really turn the tide and make a difference in being able to increase prostate cancer research funding. I'm sure that we went through this, but for every $10 million that gets added to that program, it's between 6 and 8 really brilliant ideas that can get funded to medical and academic institutions all around the country. Over the years, there's been 6 new treatments for advanced prostate cancer and a terrific diagnostic tool to be able to tell what's aggressive disease and what's indolent disease, so we don't have to treat it unnecessarily, and what treatments might work versus some other treatments, so we don't have to go through the guessing game of, well, you know, I hope this treatment works. And that's just incredible advancement. And it all comes from this wonderful program. And they don't get the funding. Scientists, these brilliant minds all around the country don't get the funding without your help. So really, as I said before, we've had Cal Ripken here at the summit, but you all are the cleanup hitters. You're the MVPs. And just telling your story will be able to we'll be able to convince staffers and members of Congress to stand with you in our shared fight to end prostate cancer. So thank you again, and please reach out to us at any time for any questions that you have, you know, during your journey this week at the summit, and also next week when you're meeting members of Congress. So thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. I feel like I really missed the memo on using baseball words this week. So I apologize. There's no crying in baseball. There you go. I got nothing. But really, thank you guys. Email me, Allie@zerocancer.org, if you've got questions. You know how to find us. It's not over, but.
And Zero champions are in a league of their own, right?
See, he's been sitting there thinking about this. It's not fair.
I'm just playing off of what you said.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. We look forward to your meetings next week. Susan and I are going to do our best to coordinate with you and plug into as many of your meetings as we can, just to make sure you've got the support you need. But you got this. You can do it, and you're going to have fun. It's exciting. I find it really meaningful. So thank you.
I can't wait to hear the stories. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, guys.